everyone, and welcome back to Game Changers of Women in Soccer Symposium. Today, we are talking about implementation of Women in Sport program presented by Katie Collar. My name is Adriana Martinez, and I'll be the host for this presentation. I am a fan of women's football and a fan of the female leaders here today. And just like you, I'm here to learn on how we can change the game for girls in soccer and female leaders in sport. Before we get into it, a little brief of our fantastic presenter today, Katie Collar. Katie Collar is an Alberta kid born and raised. She grew up in Calgary playing for Foothills FC, where she won 2 national championships. She then headed off to the NCAA playing in Div 1 at Eastern Kentucky University. And then after graduating, Katie spent 3 years in Nova Scotia, where she began her career in soccer. Now back in Calgary, Katie is working at Foothills FC's development phase girls manager and coaching at the University of Calgary. Last year, herself and a colleague, Alex Valerio, started a Women in Sport initiative called Grow Our Girls program to better support the girls side of the club and work to increase retention, build culture, build a leadership program, and continue to support the player pathway. Amazing, Katie. As I said to you before, I'm a fan of you and a fan of what you're doing for the girls in soccer right now. So thank you so much for being part of the symposium today. And I'm super excited to learn. So let's get into it. This is Katie Collar presenting implementation of a Women in Sport program.
Awesome. Thanks, Adriana. Thanks for that intro. And thanks everybody watching. Like she said, my name is Katie Collar and I'm extremely excited to be here. There's a very strong lineup of presenters today, and I've had the chance to listen to a couple of them being in and out of the field today, and it's been really cool to hear some of the information and similar language that's been used across the whole day. So very cool event. Thank you to Edmonton Scottish for having me. Jeff, I love this. This is an amazing opportunity for us to really kind of push the women's game forward. So really excited to be here. As Adriana said, I'll be talking a little bit about the implementation of a Women in Sport program in your own environment. So I'll go through a little bit of my journey and what that looked like, kind of going through growing up in soccer and how I ended up here. And I'll also go through the way that we implemented our program to start to impact the game. So we started our Grow Our Girls program in 2020. So it's only about a year and a half old. We had a lot of success. Did we get everything done that we wanted to? No. But did we make an impact and have some fun along the way? Absolutely. So it's been a really cool process for me and learning opportunity for our club in general. So I'll start by talking a little bit about kind of my journey. And when Jeff called me, he said, we'd love to hear a little bit more about, where you came from and how you ended up here. And, as Adriana said, I started in Calgary, grew up in Alberta, like a lot of the people that have been presenting today, that have been hosting today, which has been really cool. I ended up going to the NCAA, had a really interesting experience there, some up and down years, made my way back to Nova Scotia, which is really where I started my full-time coaching journey. But my coaching journey really started when I was about 14, and it was Tommy Wilden Jr. from the Cavalry, and he had an academy called Pass Academy, and he said, hey, I'd love for you to coach, and brought me into that, and that's really where I guess my coaching journey started. Way back in those years. So when I started working full-time in Nova Scotia, I didn't know that it was what I wanted to do yet. I, came out of university, I was thinking about potentially going into something like physiotherapy, athletic therapy, those types of fields. And I was really in kind of an in-between, and somebody had called me up, Graham Kennedy from St. FX, and he said, I'm looking for an assistant coach. I'd love you to come out and coach with me. And that's really where I first went into a more professional environment when it came to coaching. Still didn't know that that's what I wanted to do. I always had male coaches growing up and have a lot of still very strong relationships with those coaches, and they continue to be role models and people for me that push me in my career and help me in my career and support me in my career. But at that point, I had never really looked at any of them and said, yeah, I want to be you, or I can be you. I don't think I ever really related to it. So when I started working in Nova Scotia, I had the opportunity to work alongside a couple of really amazing women, and Carmelina Moscato being one of them, who's after me, which is pretty funny. And being involved in seeing them in their leadership roles and how they were impacting the game and pushing us forward as young female coaches just starting out in the game, that really ignited my fire. I think that was really the spark that said, hey, maybe this is something you want to do. Maybe this is something you want to be, professional in. So that's what, led me back to Calgary into my role at Calgary Foothills, which has been an amazing experience. So this program, the Grow Our Girls program, was, it came to be because we found we were losing girls. And I know that's kind of a typical topic now that we're talking about. Are we losing them to other sports? Are we losing them to other clubs? Are we losing them from the game in general? And so we did kind of a deep dive into, what that looked like, and created this program that was really based off of a couple different pillars: retention, building capacity, building leadership opportunities and offering leadership opportunities, and then continuing the pathway, which actually started quite a bit before this initiative in our club. So there's been a lot of support when it comes to the girls' side, and I think this was just kind of our next step into really supporting and creating an environment for the girls to thrive. So I'll talk a little bit through that as we go. It's funny that I was watching Eva's presentation prior to mine, and she showed pictures of her when she was younger. I thought this was a very fitting picture. When I was young, I played sports played soccer. I played on a boys' team. And as I started to grow and went into the girls' game, I started to form a lot of really strong relationships. And so this is kind of a quote that really drives me in my career. And they say it takes a village to raise a child. For me, the structure within sport built that village. Teammates and their families filled that village, and coaches helped lead and guide the culture, standards, and values upheld within that village. My village molded me into the person that I am today, and continues to be my family, not bound by blood, but that I have the opportunity to choose through sport. And that is really, I guess, the basis of everything that I try to model, I guess, as a leader. And I had a lot of really big opportunities in sport because of the people that were a part of my village, which has been super cool. So as I said, our Grow Our Girls program, it was really based around the 3 pillars. So building capacity and retention of girls in sport. So more girls playing more often. How do we get more girls playing, and how do we keep them playing the game longer? Leadership development and mentorship for the future generation of leaders, which is really fitting for Eva's presentation, and developing that next generation and trying to bring in, other more female coaches, but not just coaches, girls that have learned leadership styles and leadership qualities through sport that can then go on and lead companies and other businesses in their pathway. And the last one is building the pathway for women's soccer. So continuing that pathway through, which again started well before this initiative at the club through our UWS pathway. So the first pillar was the leadership initiative. And this is really what we built the other 2 off of, or the other one off of, with a main focus on creating a mentorship cycle for young women. So having not just the young girls looking up to coaches and volunteers, but also providing those people with leaders to look up to as well. So creating that cycle of role models that are women in leadership roles, helping mentor the next generation. So our first phase was really about leadership development. Last year, we had Dr. Carrie Din come in and do some leadership training with the group. This year, we had a friend of mine, Danielle Sear, come in and do some leadership training with the group and really start to give them the tools and prepare them for the next steps. We went into things like practical application, and then the biggest one was really connecting the community. So getting young girls, our leadership group, and some of the older role models within the community together, and really creating that experience for them to see somebody that they may want to be someday. So that was really a big one for us to get into. I'm just going to play you a quick clip. So this was our first event. When we started, so Alex and I, started brainstorming about this program, and there's so many different things that you can bring into a women in sport program. And I'm sure if you've heard all of the talks today, there is so many angles that you can bring out. And so when we started, we really didn't necessarily have a full picture. We ended up partnering with an organization called Fast and Female that helps put on empowerment events for young girls. And this was really the event that kind of sparked our ideas to continue other events and grow our program with some of the principles that they use, which is very cool. So I'll show you this quick video. Oh, sorry. I'm just getting a message that you can't hear it. So I will just restart it here and see if we can fix that. That's okay. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So we'll go from here and I'll just chat about it and kind of give you the summary and I can share the link later if anybody's interested in watching the video. But basically, you know, the event was around the empowerment and increasing the kind of awareness of the girls on what sport brings to their lives or what different aspects that they can get out of sport as a young girl playing and learning through sport. So it was a really cool event. We sold out right away. We had about 100 kids within an hour of posting it, which is a really cool thing because it means that there really is an appetite for it. You know, girls want to be in these types of environments. They want to be around people that they can look up to and people that they can relate to, whether it's, you know, something in common through sport or other avenues. So that was a very cool piece for us to see that, you know, there really is opportunity and appetite to bring something like this in, even if it was something small, to make a difference, which helped us kind of continue through our journey building this program. So the second pillar is really about building the capacity and retention of girls in sport. So, you know, similar to a lot of the pieces that have been said on calls earlier today, our three main things were creating a community. So creating an environment where the girls felt a part of something bigger. And they really felt like they were, you know, appreciated and cared about and known and seen. We did, prior to COVID, we did start to do some girls' game nights where we just had the girls come out, enjoy the ball, enjoy each other, and just play. No pressure, lots of fun, pizza, all those good things, and giving them that environment to really just kind of let loose, enjoy the game, but enjoy being around each other and people from other age groups. We also started hosting girls-only events, so especially in the grassroots age group. So bringing out, again, lots of girls from different types of, whether it's communities, whether it's age groups, and really creating environments where they see, oh, there's some really cool people playing soccer that I can look up to or be someday. And then really engaging on social media with girl-specific content. That was a big one for us. We really created this new kind of, I guess, program to be able to engage with our female viewership on social media and try to engage and post, ensure that we are posting content for both genders and ensure that we are posting content that's relative to, you know, everybody. Making families feel a part of something bigger. I think that's a big one, especially when you're dealing with, you're not just dealing with a kid, you're dealing with siblings and parents and grandparents, and helping them to feel a part of something bigger was important. So Fast and Female partnership was a big one to kind of get that going. And then seasonal meetings. So having those meetings, getting in front of people, having individual meetings and having conversations about, what's going on, what's coming next, what are we working on, and really, again, making them feel like they're a part of a community and a part of something bigger. The last one is listening to the needs of our players. There's a lot of players who are super talented and they may not want to be the best. They don't want to play for Canada. They want to play with their friends. And on the flip side, there's players that maybe have started later. They might be late developers, but they really have the drive and engagement to want to get to the next level. So listening to their needs and understanding what their goals are and kind of meeting them where they are was really important to us. So starting, again, those individual meetings were a big one to really get to know the players. Registration identification at the early ages is something where, we really want to see, are these players, are they there for fun? Most of them are, right? Are they there for their friends? What motivates them to be there? And how do we create an environment that can continue to provide that for them as they move through our system? And then the last one is grow our sport. And this one, again, I mentioned at the beginning, but it really started well before our Women in Sport initiative. It started before I was at the club, creating and sustaining a women's pathway. We started this at the club through our UWS program, having a pro-amateur team, and really creating an environment, again, where girls have the opportunity to look up to other girls succeeding in the sport that they're playing in. Even if they don't aspire to be there, seeing women succeed and become leaders and have success it translates to all walks of life, and it translates to other parts of their dreams and aspirations. So creating an environment where we were able to have these players and have them really be around the younger players and have the younger players really look up to them. It just creates, again, that mentorship cycle and the pathway opportunities. Not all players want to play at the UWS level. Not all players want to play at the pro amateur level. So ensuring that the Soccer for Life pathway continues is super important. It's something that, we as a country need to help facilitate an environment where we have more women continuing to play in the game. We lose a lot of players after youth. If they don't go to university, they don't play in university. We lose them to jobs and families, and then eventually they come back. Typically, when their kids start to play and realize they love the game again. But allowing for that pathway to continue and creating an environment for that pathway to continue is really important. I love this picture because it's a picture of a whole bunch of generations, really, of Foothills players that come back together at Christmas and play in a tournament together. So creating that Soccer for Life pathway and allowing that pathway to continue for people to continue to play and stay active. University commitments is a big focus as well. So ensuring that our players that do want to continue on in the game can continue on in the game and helping support them through that process. So allowing that opportunity for them to ask questions, ask for support, and hosting events like many of you do about the post-secondary opportunities that they have. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our Foothills WFC program, so the pillar of our pathway, which really allows, again, the opportunity for players that are aspiring for more to continue to pursue it. This is a great picture down here. The three girls on the right played in our UWS team in 2019 and then went to a CONCACAF tournament. They've had success in university. They've had all these great experiences. And again, it's really about creating the experiences for these young players to enjoy the game and continue to pursue it at the level that they want to be at. And then what's next? So again, continuing to push the female pathway and pushing, how do we create an environment in this country where we have a pathway for women and we have somewhere for women to continue to play and aspire to be at the next level and, even facilitate the late bloomers. who we might miss in those generations. So continuing to push forward and allow for us to create an environment that women get equal opportunity to continue their pathway through sport. All right. So I'm going to stop my share so we can come back into here. Awesome. And I'll open up to any questions. Oh.
I'm muted. Classic.
You're muted. Sound issues today.
Don't see us, but I hope everyone can hear us. Oh,
sorry, I'm getting messages here. There we go. Are we good?
I think so. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Okay, cool. Great presentation. Again, a fan of everything that Foothills is doing and what you're doing. So here is our first question. What are your thoughts on Canada's need for its own professional women's league?
Love it. I love that question. I think it's incredibly important. I think, you know, the success that we've seen having a pathway for our girls to aspire to, it's amazing. You know, you have opportunity for coaches working in the women's game. And I know there was a presentation earlier today that Amy did about having, you know, more female coaches. Where are all the female coaches? We need to create an environment where there's opportunity for female coaches, especially aspiring to the next level and having those positions available. I think that for players, it provides more opportunity to continue to play. So we're going to have players playing more long-term. We're going to create, you know, a better pool or deeper pool of players and an opportunity for national environments to be able to see those players. And we're creating not just coaching jobs, but opportunities for other women working in sport to be around that type of environment and lead that type of environment. There's boards, there's committees, there's sponsorship, there's all of these different things that go into having a professional league or pro amateur league that would really create opportunity for female players, female coaches, and other girls working in sport if those aren't the pathways they're pursuing. So I think it's incredibly important. I think it's a really cool, I think we're in a good place in the sense that there's a lot of appetite for it. And there's a lot of organizations across the country that are ready for it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you mentioned that this isn't just about players and coaches. There is a whole ecosystem. There is a whole background scene that people don't know about to make a professional women's league possible. And that comes with a lot of jobs. You know, I think we talked about how I'm in marketing, I'm in sports marketing, and that's one of the things that I want to do. And if there was a professional women's league here, I'd love to stay in my home country and support that. You know what I mean? So I love that you mentioned that. All right. This question number 2, how much emphasis do you put on non-soccer activities to create social connectivity? Do you have any ideas to share?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think connecting outside of the field or connecting through other activities is super important, especially when you're trying to create those bonds with young girls. At our grassroots events, we rarely have all soccer stations. There's hula hoops, there's bubbles, there's all of the things that you would want to do outside on a nice day with the sun, and with other girls that are maybe older than you or have already gone through where you are now. And providing, again, that environment for them to really connect and be themselves. I think that, you know, allowing different environments for girls to open up and start to be comfortable will only help with performance and only help with their opportunities to kind of shine and let themselves shine through and be their authentic self to be able to perform. So, you know, the things that we've done in the past would be the girls' night. So getting all the girls together from different age groups, splitting them up, mixing them up, getting them in, having some free play and allowing them to enjoy the game, but also having some of our, you know, senior leadership girls there and involved and facilitating things like little dance parties, or the fun competitions that are just outside of the sport, and allows the girls to be silly and be themselves and laugh and smile. I think you create deeper connections there. You create more authentic connections there, and it creates a really cool and safe environment for them.
Awesome. I just want to follow up a little bit, because we are in weird times right now with the pandemic, and it's that connection is really hard to do sometimes over a Zoom call, right? Especially when we're so used to being in person and having these real connections. Do you have any advice for people who are doing Zoom sessions, like some ideas on how to build those authentic connections? Have you done anything with your girls recently that you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's lots of things that we can do. A lot of it is, again, around keeping it fun, keeping it light, and keeping that conversation going. I know when back in the last kind of time where we were doing Zoom sessions, we started to bring in things like trivia. So they're doing their skills, they're maybe competing in their skills, but then they have to come back and answer some silly question that maybe some of them know and some of them don't. I think creating, again, environments that are outside of the actual technical work, maybe for the younger groups, they come dressed as princesses. I heard one of our U9 groups did that over Zoom, and the girls were able to really dress up, go all out, and present their talent. Right. So just, again, allowing the girls opportunities to get to know each other on a deeper level, even though it's through a screen. It still allows them to kind of be themselves and open up a little bit and create those connections. So I think being creative and not so serious, I think, would be the best answer to that question. They all need some technical touches during this time, but I think more importantly, they need connection.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, question 3, Katie. What are your thoughts on using tournaments to create a culture within your girls program? Do you look to create a club culture by taking several of your girls' teams away together?
Absolutely. I think that it's an amazing way to create club culture. You're there, you're in the tournament. Usually you're in the same hotel with one or two of the other teams. And you're seeing each other in the pool. You're seeing each other in the hallway. You're cheering for each other in the games. You're sticking around to see how people do. I think it really does create a club culture and help create a club culture within that environment. So it is something that we've done in the past, where we do club tours and take multiple teams together to tournaments, and really try to create that support system for teams. So one team's playing, the other team's watching, and allowing, again, that club environment, that club culture to build and thrive.
Totally. That's awesome. All right. Question 4. What was the biggest challenge in building a pathway program for girls?
That's a good question. That process definitely started before I was at the club. So, actually the building of the process, I wasn't necessarily directly involved in. I think now, with my experience working in the program and working year to year on bringing in sponsorship and those types of things, I think that, the financial side is a big barrier, in that there isn't as much money in the women's game, and there's not as much financial support, and there's not as many people willing to take a risk on the women's game as opposed to the men's game. So, I think that is a big barrier where, building that capacity and allowing the sustainability of a franchise through sponsorship and investment is definitely, it continues year to year to be difficult. However, there's a lot of ways to overcome it. And I think there are a lot of people right now in the country that support the women's game and are helping to, build that women's pathway. So it's having those conversations, really. It's having those conversations and really pushing it in a way that it's not just supporting the sport necessarily, but it's supporting the lives of these girls and women through their careers, not just as players, but as leaders, and as aspiring professionals as well. So, I think that there's definitely barriers on the women's side when it comes to, getting that funding, keeping that funding, keeping, a franchise going with travel and all of those things. But I also think on the flip side that there are so many people that want to see this happen and want to support it, that it's just about having conversations, and it's about really driving it and not giving up.
Yeah.
Really chasing that dream.
Yeah, I think the education component is so important, right? And then when you're having those conversations, is maybe this person is a fan now, but you have a conversation, you educate them a little bit, and then maybe 6 months, a year from now, they become a fan and they become a supporter and a funder. So yeah, I love that response. Don't stop having conversations about women's football.
Exactly.
All right, question 5 here. For your leadership mentorship program, was everyone invited and allowed to join, or was there an application process, and how long is the program itself?
Good question. So we, our first cycle, we put it out to our kind of U17 players and older. So some of the girls that are in the program are in the university age realm, that have either been at the club before or in the Dinos program. We had 8 girls in our first cycle. They applied for the program. They wrote cover letter, resume, applied for the program. Were, the ones that were interested in the program. Last year, we ran it for 10 months. This year will be similar. It'll be 9 months, just based on start dates and the way that things have worked out in the current environment. So it's an application process, but it's also about speaking to people and seeing kind of who is interested in pursuing leadership. I think has been an important part for us when we look at bringing girls in. So they've applied, they've come in, and we run the program now with 16 girls. So we've grown from 8 to 16, from now about 15 to, again, that university age group. Again, providing them opportunities. So they're really the girls that are interested, willing to put in the time, and aspiring to become a leader in some way, shape, or form within whatever their pathway looks like.
That's awesome. And you went from 8 to 16, so maybe it'll grow from 16 to 25 to, what does that growth look like? What helps with that growth?
I think the biggest thing that helps with that growth is our older ones becoming more of the mentors within the group. So, when we first started, it was Alex and I, and typically we brought in a speaker when it came to, specific leadership sessions. So Dr. Carrie Din, Danielle Sear, different people that had expertise in different ways that could help impact our group. As well as role models for them. So bringing in people that have had success from a women in leadership perspective, to come and just tell their story and talk about their successes and barriers and all of those things. So I think the dream would be now for those girls that have really had now 2 years in the program to start to give back and create that mentorship cycle. I've said it a couple of times today, but create that mentorship cycle for the younger ones that are now coming in, and creating those connections, and for them to then bring in that practical application and really start to develop others.
Yeah, it's twofold.
Yeah.
They get the mentorship, they get to apply it, and then, others benefit from it. They get the mentorship. That's awesome. Super, super awesome. Okay, question 6 here. What would be your steps 1, 2, and 3 for a club that wants to create a strong female program? And is there an ideal age to start with?
Oh, great question. I would say step 1. So step 1 for us was really just doing an evaluation of our program. So where are we low numbers? Where are we losing players? What are the reasons that we are losing players? That was our step 1. So figuring out where we were at. I don't know if it's a one size fits all model. I think there's a lot of things that can be applicable across multiple sports, all avenues, when it comes to building that community, communication, the authentic relationships, and the mentorship cycle within the girls program. But I think that it will be individual in different ways to people's environment. So I think doing an evaluation of where you're at is a step 1, and really important. Step two is then really thinking about a plan to impact those things. So for us, it was rebuilding a culture and starting to grow the base. So that was the real kind of actionable items for us to try to impact our girls program. So bringing in, again, a big focus on the retention side and keeping the girls in the game, but then also trying to bring more girls in at the lower end or at the base. So that was our step two, is really looking at what that looks like. What are things that we can implement that will help with that? And then how do we get there, and what are the steps to take from there? Our step three, honestly, is just doing something. I think there's a lot of people that want to do something, want to start a program, want to, have these big dreams. And what I learned from our process was you're probably not going to get everything done that you wanted to get done. There's a lot of aspects of this, and there's a lot of things that you can do. And you can have, all these things that you want to do. But at the end of the day, if you do something, it's making an impact. So just getting going, I think, is really the step three, is having that event that sparks the interest, having that event that gives you more ideas, and you get that, trial and error in a way. But I think that would be my biggest advice, is just get going, try it, do it, you'll learn. And at the end of the day, if the worst you've done is bring a bunch of girls together and have them have a really fun day, you've won and you've done something good for the program.
That's awesome. And I'm just going to repeat here. Step one, evaluate, right? Where are the gaps right now? And then your step two, make that plan. What is going to help fill those gaps? And then step three, do it. Just do it. Get it done. And it is all about trial and error, because I'm sure Foothills, their first time doing something, it probably didn't go as planned, but you learn from it and you just continuously get better and better and better.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Awesome. Question 7 here. Late bloomers are a big collective of players. How do you cater to both the early and the late bloomers and everyone in between?
That's the question of the hour, isn't it? I think, when it comes down to individualizing a player's pathway, it's really knowing, one, where they are, two, where they want to be, and then three is meeting them where they are and helping them along that pathway. You never know where a player is going to be. I tell this story all the time, but so we do these individual meetings and we meet with the players, we give them feedback. We ask them, where do you want to be? What are your goals? How do we help you get there? I had a kid a couple of years ago. She was playing tier 2 at the time. And, she was an average tier 2 player. She was super athletic, worked super hard. She came into my first PDP meeting and sat down with this binder, plopped it on the table, and started asking questions and showing me all of the things that she had in this binder. And it was all the work she was doing. So after a session, she had, a session date written down. She had exactly what I had said to her in that session about her shooting technique. She had all of these different, clips and things that she was working on at home. She had her goals, this binder of all these things that she was doing. And, it was a really, really cool opportunity or event for me, I think, because it really opened my eyes to everybody has these aspirations or has their own aspirations, and you don't know unless you ask. So I think, the biggest thing is, again, knowing where they are, knowing where they want to be, and then monitoring their process and their pathway to help them get there. So if it is a kid that aspires to be, further than where they are. And by the way, this kid's in our enhanced program now. She's on the tier 1 team, and the kid is excelling, and she's continuing to work hard, and she comes into PDPs every year and has something new to tell me about, where she wants to be and where she wants to go. So it really is about having those authentic relationships with the players, understanding where they want to be, where they're at, and then giving them time. And I think the last piece is the education for parents, education for players. Trusting the process is really important. There are aspiring players that just aren't ready. And it's important for them to have the opportunity to develop in their environment and have success before they move or move up or move around, to be able to really, I guess, be there at the right time. So I guess that it's a long answer, but long story short, it's really about knowing your players and helping them pursue where they want to go, and allowing for room for them to grow, move, and be patient.
Yeah, I love that. And I you know what, I want to keep talking about that, because I think you mentioned in your presentation that you do it in the registration process where you kind of figure out who they are, right? Did I?
So not necessarily officially in the registration process. So it's not on our registration form. It's more so about, our staff that are working in the younger age groups, getting an idea of, who the players are and where they want to go. So it's Alex Valerio was our foundation phase manager, and this is something that she did very, very well. So she was really getting an idea of where the players were at, where they wanted to be, and then having that through when we're thinking about forming teams, when we're thinking about, placing players, what that looks like for where they're at now, and how we can purposefully help them get to where they go.
Yeah, and that happens right in the beginning of any season, right? You do that right in the beginning of a season, and then do you do, again, like multiple check-ins? I'm just thinking from a coach perspective of how can I pull this off, right? What is the appropriate time? Do I do this every couple of months, or do I do it after a season? What is the right timing, or what's worked for you at least?
Yeah, so for us, it comes every season. We do, we call them PDP meetings, so player development pathway meetings, you, player, parent, and it's right around the end of the season. So not once the season's over, but right around the end of the season, last couple weeks of the season. And they meet with a full-time staff member or their academy staff member that it sees them on a week-to-week basis. So it happens seasonally. I think, from a personal level, coaching an individual team, it happens more often. So having those individual check-ins, for me at least, coaching, the teams that I've coached, it's really important as a team coach to build those relationships. So to be able to have those check-ins with players and say, you've done really well the last couple of weeks, where are you at? How are you doing? How are things going? And really continue that feedback and that conversation. From a club perspective, in the organization of it, it is once a season. So it's right around the end of the season.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's it for questions. I'll double check one more time, but yeah, that's it for questions. Thank you, Katie, so much for this presentation. I think this is so important for all the clubs around here in Alberta and all over the country. How can someone reach out to you to learn more about how they can implement their own Women in Sport program? Do you have an email that they can reach you at?
Absolutely. So my email is katie@gofoothills.ca. It's, I'm happy to share everything. It's, something that I'm passionate about, and I would love to see others, doing part of it, some of it, all of it. It's great to just get the girls together and really create those relationships. So happy to share everything that I've done and learned along the way, because it definitely hasn't been all easy and smooth, for sure. So happy to share.
Awesome. Thank you again so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This is Game Changers, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. We'll see you all later.